The great achievements that will be recorded in the annals of history, the Great Big Third Front construction in the Mao Zedong era. Total project investment, 205.3 billion yuan. Project period, 1958 to 1978. Before the 1980s, the term third line construction was not seen in newspapers because of secrecy. Even if people at that time talked about it, it was very mysterious. Today's young people, even less heard. What is the big third line construction? The third line construction is the construction of an industrial system with the longest duration and the largest scale launched by New China between 1964 and 1978. Simply put, it is to establish a small but complete national economic system, industrial production system, resource and energy system, military manufacturing system, transportation and communication system, and scientific and technological research and development system in the vast southwest region centered on Sichuan, and strategic reserve system. Why do you want to do this? In a word, it is to establish the strategic rear of the Chinese nation. Due to geographical and historical reasons, 70% of China's industries were distributed in the northeast and coastal areas at that time. From the perspective of military economics, this industrial layout was very fragile. The heavy industry in the northeast was completely within the range of Soviet bombers and short and medium-range missiles. In the coastal area, the East China Industrial Zone centered on Shanghai is completely exposed to the attack range of the U.S. aircraft carrier. Once the war starts, China's industry will be paralyzed very quickly. If we were flanked by a powerful enemy, and an extremely bad situation like Japanese aggression occurred, where the northeast and East China industrial areas were lost one after another, and a large area of land was lost, we could still retreat to the mountains and rivers, and preserve a miniature China. In Sichuan and southwest China, deploy a complete set of independent, complete, coordinated, practical transportation energy, basic industry, and defense industry systems to keep our industrialization process from being completely interrupted, and then wait for an opportunity to counterattack. It's hard work. Ancient China was in the era of land power for thousands of years, and most of the threats of invasion to the Central Plains dynasty came from the nomadic peoples in the northwest. In the east, the vast sea forms a reliable natural barrier, which is very safe. When the world entered the era of sea power, China's security situation underwent a 180-degree change. In the 105 years from 1840 to 1945, the 7 large-scale wars in which China suffered aggression all started from the eastern coastal areas. And my country's most developed and prosperous economic regions and political and cultural center cities are all concentrated in the soft belly of the eastern coast. The country has no reliable strategic rear. From 1938 to 1940, when the Japanese imperialists began to encircle China comprehensively, the national government hastily moved more than 250 factories in eastern and central China to Sichuan. Unlike Chiang Kai-shek, Mao Zedong implemented a strategic layout in a planned way. Since the construction of the Great Third Front is in an area larger than the combined area of Britain, France, and Germany, the entire economy and culture have been rebuilt. Even if there is no war, it will have inestimable strategic and economic significance. In order to defend against foreign enemies, Mao Zedong put forward the strategic concept of three-line construction. He divided the whole country into the front line, the middle zone and the strategic rear, referred to as the first line, the second line and the third line respectively. According to China's Military Economic Geography Division, coastal areas are the first line, including coastal and frontier provinces and regions, such as Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, Liaoning, Heilongjiang, Jilin, Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, Shandong, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Fujian, Guangdong, etc. The third line refers to the vast area south of the Great Wall, north of Shaoguan in Guangdong Province, west of the Beijing-Guangzhou Railway, and east of Wuxialing in Gansu, including the 7 provinces of Sichuan, Guizhou, Yunnan, Shaanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, and Qinghai that are basically inland region, and Shaanxi, Hebei, Henan, Hunan, Hubei, Guangxi and other provinces and regions inland, involving a total of 13 provinces and regions. Sichuan, Yunnan, Guizhou, Western Hunan, and Western Hubei are the third line in the southwest, and Shaanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, Qinghai, Western Henan, and Western Shaanxi are the third line in the northwest. Compared with the big third line in the northwest and southwest, the hinterland of the central and coastal areas is called the small third line. In today's concept, It basically refers to central and western China excluding Xinjiang, Tibet, and Inner Mongolia. The area between the first and third tier areas is the second tier area. China belongs to a balanced land shape, with little difference in the distance between the east, west, north, south, and north peripheries to the central area, and the inner and outer lines, and the front and rear can be clearly distinguished. The center point of China is measured from the top of the four directions, roughly in Beiji between Lanzhou, Gansu, and Xi'an, Shaanxi. From the perspective of natural terrain, China's terrain is high in the west and low in the east. From south to north in the west are the Yunnan-Gansu Plateau, the Hongduan Mountains, the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, the Himalayas, the Kunlun Mountains, the Pamirs, the Taklamakan Desert, the Tian Shan Mountains, and the Helan Mountains. An impenetrable natural half-moon barrier. In history, the Macedonian Empire and the Arab Empire, which had expeditions to Europe, Asia, and Africa, ended here. No foreign army has ever been able to invade the mainland of China from the west. In the northeast, there are the Greater and Lesser Khingan Mountains, which are also easy to defend but difficult to attack. In the land territory, only the central part of the Inner Mongolia Plateau in the north is quite open, and most of it is desert and grassland. Relatively speaking, the terrain along the eastern coast is relatively low and flat, mostly hills and plains, and it is advantageous to retreat to the Taihang Mountains to defend. Therefore, Mao Zedong and other Chinese leaders decided to use Sichuan, Guizhou, Yunnan, Shaanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, Qinghai, Hubei, Henan, and western Hunan as the rear of the Third Front. After the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950, the United States implemented a military encirclement, and the threat to New China still mainly came from the southeast coast. Due to the one-sided foreign policy towards the Soviet Union and the economic aid received from the Soviet Union at that time, the Soviet Union was actually regarded as the rear area, and the focus of construction was on the northeast and North China. The question of building a strategic rear is not urgent. On August 2, 1964, the United States provoked the Bibu Gulf incident and bombed the North Vietnamese naval base. The scale of the Vietnam War expanded rapidly and affected China. By August 1966, there were as many as 429,000 U.S. troops stationed in Vietnam, posing a serious threat to East Asian geopolitical security. The photo is of the U.S. aircraft carrier USS CV-61 Raider, USS Ranger, cruising in the South China Sea in February 1965. The ship is the third of the Forest class. It started construction at the Newport News shipyard in 1954, launched in September 1956, and entered service in August 1957. It has a full load displacement of 81,163 tons and 78 aircraft. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military sent 22 subcarriers to the war. These include all four Forest-class ships and the nuclear-powered carriers USS Kitty Hawk and Enterprise. Why did Mao Zedong and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China carry out the third line construction? When it comes to the origin of the third line, it needs to be traced back to the 1960s. In 1960, the relationship between China and the Soviet Union deteriorated sharply. The Soviet Union stationed millions of soldiers on the northern border of our country, eyeing us. The Chiang Kai-shek regime entrenched in Taiwan was aggressive and tried to counterattack the mainland, Sino-Indian military conflict. In 1964, the United States formulated the top-secret report Basis of Direct Action against the Communist Party's nuclear facilities in China, trying to dispatch the Air Force to attack China's nuclear base where the first atomic bomb test was about to be carried out, and planned to cooperate with the Soviet Union. U.S. President Johnson discussed this with Secretary of State Rusk and Secretary of Defense McNamara, and had specific discussions with Taiwan. The U.S. aircraft carrier held a nuclear war exercise in the Taiwan Strait. On August 2, 1964, the Bibu Gulf incident broke out. The American destroyer MacDoss had a fierce battle with the Vietnamese Navy torpedo ship. The scale of the Vietnam War expanded and spread to southern China. Both Hainan Island and the coast of the Bibu Gulf dropped American bombs and missiles, directly threatening China's security. Facing the threat of war, Mao Zedong and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China resolutely decided to suspend the original idea of the 3-5-year plan of catching food and clothing. On August 19, Li Fucun, Bo Yubo, and Luo Ruqing jointly proposed about the National Report on how to prepare for the enemy's sudden attack in economic construction. On October 30, the Central Work Conference passed and issued the 1965 Plan Outline, draft, proposed by the State Planning Commission. it was decided to step up combat preparations from 1964, and to carry out large-scale industrial, transportation, and national defense infrastructure construction in the third-line rear areas of western provinces such as Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan, Shaanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, and Qinghai. These areas are thousands of kilometers away from the western border of the country and more than 700 kilometers away from the southeast coastline. In addition, there are Qinghai Tibet Plateau, Yunnan Guizhou Plateau, Taihang Mountains, Dabi Mountains, Helan Mountains, Luoyang Mountains, and other rolling mountain ranges as natural barriers on all sides. Under certain circumstances, it becomes an ideal strategic rear. Faced with the threat of war, the Chinese people have to make sacrifices that cannot improve their living standards faster for the time being. In 1969, a large-scale armed conflict occurred on the Sino-Soviet border on Jinbao Island. The Politburo of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union discussed the plan to use surgical nuclear strikes to eliminate nuclear bases in China's interior, and planned to cooperate with the United States. Faced with the threat of war again, Mao Zedong issued a call to the people of the whole country to fight a vicious war, so the slogan "Prepare for war, prepare for famine, and serve the people" resounded all over the world. Wave after wave, China's third line construction set off a second climax. The construction of the third line lasted 14 years from 1964 to 1978. If the first 6 years from 1958 to 1964 are included, it will be a total of 20 years. The core time period is 8 years from 1964 to 1972, which traverses the third line of the 3 5-year plans. During the construction, the state invested a huge sum of 205.268 billion yuan in the central and western regions of 13 major provinces and autonomous regions, involving the reconstruction, relocation, and merger of more than 600 enterprises and institutions. The scale of the entire project is unprecedented. Millions of workers, cadres, intellectuals, officers, and soldiers of the People's Liberation Army, and tens of millions of migrant workers built their backpacks and trekked across mountains and rivers to the deep mountains and valleys and deserts in the southwest and northwest of the motherland. They slept in the open air, carried people on their shoulders, and built more than 1,100 large and medium-sized industrial and mining enterprises, scientific research units, and colleges and universities scattered all over the country with more than 10 years of hardship, blood, sweat, and life. The most important project in the first 3 years of Sichuan's third line construction is the 2 basics and 1 line. The 2 bases are the conventional weapons industrial base centered in Chongqing and the iron and steel industrial base centered in Panzhihua as the core of wartime military production. The first line is to build the Chengdu-Kunming railway trunk line to solve the traffic problems in the southwest region and satisfy the transportation of industrial energy, raw materials, parts, and finished products. Jingkou River Data River Grand Canyon, Lashan City, Sichuan Province, Huangkunba Tunnel Station of Chengdu-Kunming Railway. On August 12, 1965, the Second Railway Bureau blasted 395,000 cubic meters at a time with 388 tons of explosives, completing the feat of blasting mountains and filling ravines. The mountain top was leveled and 2 deep valleys were filled to create a station inside the tunnel. Huangkunba Station is also known as the railway station blasted out by one shot. When the Huangkunba Tunnel was opened that year, the entrance and exit set a record of double port tunnels exceeding 100 meters in 1 month, and the central government sent a special congratulatory message. This is the first and only time that the central government sent a congratulatory message for the progress of a tunnel. The Huangkunba Tunnel is 6,187 meters long and has a maximum buried depth of 1,650 meters. It is the second longest tunnel on the Chengdu-Kunming Railway after the Sheimurada Tunnel, 6,379 meters, the first in the country at the time. It was completed in May 1966. In 1973, a Ming cave was built 80 meters outside the entrance of Kunming Duan Cave. 10 kilometers away from Huangkunba Station, there is China's third uranium enrichment production base, Lanzhou 504 factory relocation. Engineering miracle Chengdu-Kunming Railway. In July 1958, the Chengdu-Yimei section of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway started construction, and the steel base was launched. The Southwest Design Bureau, Second Design Institute, of the Ministry of Railways and the Ministry of Geology mobilized more than 5,000 engineering geological survey personnel to complete geological surveying and mapping of 14,800 square kilometers, with a drilling volume of 212,700 meters. After several years of hard work, 11,000 kilometers of routes have been surveyed and compared, more than 300 plans for size comparison and selection have been formulated, and a blueprint for the route has basically been drawn. The operating mileage of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway is 1,090.9 kilometers. It starts from Chengdu, Sichuan in the north, and goes from the western Sichuan plain at an altitude of about 300 meters to the south at the foot of Mount Imei. Pass through the watershed between the Minjiang River and the Yelong River at an altitude of about 2,300 meters, pass through Zikane, follow the fast-flowing Sunshui River, Anning River, and Yelong River, and descend to the valley of the Jinsha River at an altitude of about 1,000 meters, connecting the Panzawa mining area, and then going up the Longchuan River it reaches the central Yunnan Plateau at an altitude of about 1,900 meters, ends in Kunming, Yunnan Province in the south, and runs longitudinally through the southwestern Sichuan and northern Yunnan regions that are closed by high mountains, valleys, and great rivers. The terrain along the Chengdu-Kunming Railway is not only complex and steep, but also due to the influence of previous tectonic movements, the geological conditions are extremely complex, and there are various adverse physical and geological phenomena such as hillside collapse, rockfall, landslides, and mud rock flows, which still make people crossing the Chengdu-Kunming Railway terrified. The new geological movement is also relatively active, and more than 500 kilometers of the whole line is located in the earthquake zone with an intensity of 7 to 9 degrees. To build a modern railway in such a geographical environment, bridges and tunnels are bound to be dense and the project is arduous. In order to cross terrain obstacles, 991 bridges were built along the line with a total extension of 106.1 kilometers, including 113 bridges over 200 meters in length. 427 tunnels were dug with a total extension of 344.7 kilometers, including 9 long tunnel over 3 kilometers long. The total tunnel length accounts for 41.6% of the entire line length. Due to terrain constraints, 42 of the 122 stations along the line had to be built in whole or in part on bridges and in tunnels. The 58-kilometer line from Jingkao'erhe to Aidai has 44 kilometers of tunnel, almost becoming an underground railway. The Samarata Tunnel, which passes through Xiaoxiangling, 2,244 meters above sea level, the highest point on the whole line, has a total length of 6,379 meters and was the longest tunnel in the country at that time. In order to overcome the terrain height difference, 7 spiral, circular and bulb-shaped winding mountain exhibition lines are designed across the entire line, 13 times across the Nairi River, 8 times across the Anning River, and 47 times across the Longchuan River. The straight line distance between Naibo and Hongfeng stations on the Nairi River is only 7 kilometers, but the height difference is 142 meters, and the natural slope is more than 20 per thousand, so the line has to be crossed in 3 folds in the mountains with a maximum slope of 16 per thousand. It spans 6 large and medium bridges and 11 tunnels, and the line is doubled. In the precipitous Longchuan River Canyon, due to the circuitous and overlapping tunnels in the mountains, the entrance and exit appear in the same direction, but the height difference is tens of meters. In August 1964, the battle on the Chengdu-Kunming line kicked off. For a while, tents were dotted in the remote mountains and canyons, and red flags were fluttering. On the cliffs where monkeys scare hawks to death, gunfire rumbled and gunpowder filled the air. With the support and cooperation of all aspects, the project is progressing smoothly. At the end of 1965, the 2 lines of Sichuan-Guizhou and Guizhou-Kunming were nearly completed, and the 2 divisions of the railway corps moved to Chengdu-Kunming line. The number of builders increased to 400,000, and the construction quickly reached a climax. According to the progress at that time, it was originally scheduled to be completed and open to traffic on July 1, 1968. The plan is fully achievable. In August 1969, under the urgent international situation after the Battle of Zhenbao Island, Premier Zhou Enlai, on behalf of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, the State Council, and the Central Military Commission, issued an order that the Chengdu-Kunming Railway must be fully open to traffic on July 1, 1970, and ordered the newly established the Southwest Command of the Railway Corps unified leadership of the construction. The Road Construction Army rose up to respond, and within dozens of days, tens of thousands of railway employees returned to the construction site. On September 1st, the construction of the northern section of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway, which had been silent for 2 years, was fully resumed. The builders overcame all kinds of difficulties and dangers, and the project progressed all the way. After 10 months of rush construction, the north-south section of the Chengdu-Kunming line finally completed track laying and docking in Lizhu, Zhejiang, Sichuan province as scheduled. The whole line was put into trial operation on July 22, and it was officially put into operation on January 1, 1971. Calculated based on the prices at that time, the total investment of Chengdu-Kunming Railway was 3.075 billion yuan, with an average cost of 2.82 million yuan per kilometer, which was more than 4 times the average construction cost per kilometer of ordinary plain railways at that time. Simple quantitative conversion shows that the construction difficulty of Chengdu-Kunming Railway is more than 4 times that of ordinary railways. The construction of a 1,000-kilometer Chengdu-Kunming Railway is equivalent to the construction of a 4,000-kilometer ordinary railway. The construction of Chengdu-Kunming Railway has brought my country's railway construction technology to the world's advanced level, and created a successful example for human beings to build high-standard railways in steep and complex mountainous areas. In 1985, the design and construction of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway, together with the research and design of my country's first-generation nuclear submarine, was among the first to be awarded the highest scientific honor issued by the country, the Special Prize for National Science and Technology Progress. The builders of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway have created achievements that last forever, and wrote a heroic poem in the history of road construction in New China. The construction project of Chengdu-Kunming Railway has moved between high mountains and deep valleys. The environment along the line is difficult and the supply of logistics support materials is insufficient, but the morale of the builders is high. In the fight against dangerous situations such as tunnel collapses, many railway soldiers and railway employees took risks to eliminate dangerous situations. Many people were honorably injured, and some even gave their precious lives. Almost every newly built railway station along the way has a martyr cemetery or cemetery, silently watching the passing trains. There are no authoritative and detailed statistics on the total number of railway soldiers, railway workers, and militiamen who died during the construction of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway. There are different sources, ranging from more than 1,000 to more than 3,000. Generally speaking, more than 1,000 railway soldiers died. According to the introduction of contemporary Sichuan Railway, a unit of the 2nd Engineering Bureau of the Ministry of Railways lost more than 600 people because of work, and another unit died in 2 floods and mudslides. 130 people died in the line of duty. The construction of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway is a war, and the martyrs who died are always worthy of our memory. General Liu Huaqing, the former vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, once said when talking about the third line construction, under the difficult political, economic, and natural conditions at that time, the spirit of hard work shown by the vast number of cadres, workers, intellectuals, and officers and soldiers of the People's Liberation Army, is a precious spiritual wealth that is always worth carrying forward. Although the Chengdu-Kunming Railway was born as a key project in the construction of the third line of national defense, in fact, its role is far more than just preparing for war. A sociologist commented, the construction of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway and Panzawa Steel has at least influenced and changed the fate of 20 million people in the southwest and made the southwest Huangsai area progress for 50 years. The Chengdu-Kunming Railway is connected with the Guizhou-Kunming, Sichuan-Guizhou, and Chengdu-Chongqing railways, forming a circular road network in the southwest. There are also Baoken, Hunan-Guizhou, and Guizhou-Guizhou 3 passages leading to the northwest, central south, and South China. There is almost no history of decent railroads. At the same time as the Chengdu-Kunming Railway was opened, on July 10, 1970, the No. 1 blast furnace of Panzawa Iron and Steel Works was officially put into operation. After more than 20 years, the 2 phases of the Panzawa project were all completed. Finally, in a desolate and hot valley, the largest production base of railway steel, vanadium products, titanium raw materials and titanium dioxide in China and an important heavy industrial city in the west were formed. Relying on the Chengdu-Kunming Railway, an important aerospace base Zhejiang Satellite Launch Center was established in the late 1970s. With the further development of the third line construction, the Zhejiang Railway was also launched in the late 1960s. It learned the experience and lessons of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway and built it mainly by railway soldiers. It was completed and opened to traffic in 1973, connecting the Chongqing Conventional Weapons Industrial Base and central China. Regional connection, and relying on the Zhejiang Railway, the second automobile manufacturing plant was built in Xi'an, Hubei. During the same period, the construction of the Zhejiang Railway, the Zhejiang Yangtze River Bridge expanded from Taiyuan southward to Zhanjiang, as the backup line of the southern section of the Beijing-Guangzhou Railway, which runs through western Hubei, western Hunan, and northern Guangxi, also started construction. These two southwest three-line railway lines were also built in areas with very harsh geological and geographical conditions. Under the premise of taking the lead in railway transportation, the industries of the southwestern provinces have undergone comprehensive and profound re-engineering, and a basically complete system of heavy industries such as iron and steel, energy, non-ferrous metals, electronics, chemistry, and machinery has been established, laying the foundation for current development. Part of it was later called the Western Spine, such as Panzawa, Jiquan, Jinchuan and other iron and steel metallurgical bases, Jiquan, Zikane Aerospace Satellite Launch Center, Kizhuba, Liujiaxia and other hydropower stations, Liupanshui, Huaibei Coal Base, Great Wall, Shuicheng and other large steel plants, Kizhu, Hanzhong Aviation Base, Western Sichuan Nuclear Industry Base, Middle and Upper Yangtze River Shipbuilding Base, Sichuan, Jianggan, Changqing, Zhongyuan and other oil and gas fields, Chongqing, Western Henan, Western Hubei, Western Hunan Conventional Weapons Industrial Base, Hubei China's second automobile factory, Dongfang Electric Factory, Dongfang Steam Turbine Factory, Dongfang Boiler Factory and other manufacturing bases, Southwest China Institute of Physics, China Nuclear Power Research and Design Institute and other scientific research institutions. This has formed China's reliable West Rear Science and Technology Industrial Base, initially changed the layout of China's uneven economic development between the East and the West, and promoted the social progress of China's inland and border areas. In terms of national defense science and technology industry, a conventional weapon industrial base centered in Chongqing, an aviation industry base centered in Chengdu, a shipbuilding industry base in the upper reaches of the Yangtze River, and a national defense cutting-edge technology research and development base centered in Mianyang have been formed, which are sufficient to provide a modern army with various complete weapons and equipment form a solid strategic rear, China's refuge. The construction of the third line has also created a lot of talents. For example, Hu Jintao, who was assigned to work at the Liujiaxia hydropower station during the Cultural Revolution, Wang Zheokyo, who was assigned to work at the No. 2 automobile factory in Xi'an City, Hubei Province, and a large number of cotters who later took on important jobs are all excellent talents tempered in the melting pot of the third line construction. The third line construction can be called an unprecedented construction strategic project in the history of the People's Republic of China. On August 7, 2012, the former residential area of Yunma Aircraft Manufacturing Factory in Anshan, who was photographed. Yunma Aircraft Manufacturing Factory, 130 Factory, was established in 1965 and is one of the main factories of the 011 Aviation Base. In recent years, it has gradually moved to Guiyang, Anshan and other places. Rather than saying that Yunma Factory is a factory, it is better to say that it is a small town, with factories, residential areas, vegetable farms, schools, and a cultural palace. Although the sparrow is small, it has all internal organs. This ravine prospered due to industrialization and was abandoned due to marketization. With the relocation of the factory, the ravine eventually became a desolate and dilapidated scene. The Third Front Project Phoenix Nirvana. After the 1980s, with the reform and opening up and the easing of the Cold War, the third line construction gradually appeared in newspapers from a secret term. After the reform and opening up, many third line construction units have difficulty in developing due to their remote and closed locations. In December 1983, the Chinese government established the Third Line Office of the State Council in Chengdu. In the 1990s it was changed to the Third Line Office of the State Planning Commission, and after the 21st century it was renamed the Third Line Coordination Center of the Commission of Science, Technology, and Industry for National Defense. In November 1984, the Third Front Office of the State Council, established in December 1983, changed to the Third Front Office of the State Planning Commission in the 1990s, and the Third Front Coordination Center of the Commission of Science, Technology, and Industry for National Defense since the beginning of the 21st century, located in Chengdu, held a meeting in Chengdu to determine the first 121 units were approved for adjustment, including 9 closed down, 49 relocated or partially relocated, 48 relocated and merged, and 15 all converted to production. By 2005, the state had planned, arranged, and adjusted 201 projects, and all the adjustment and reform work of the third line construction had been successfully completed. Some processing enterprises that are highly dependent on raw materials moved to grain and cotton producing areas and small and medium-sized cities rich in mineral resources, such as Xiaogan, Xianyang, Beiji, and Jiaxi. Some produced household appliances, daily consumer goods, bicycles, motorcycles, and automobiles. Machinery, tractors, and other machinery and electronic products enterprises moved to medium-sized cities with relatively dense population, a large consumer market, and processing and cooperative industries, such as Xianfen, Hanzhong, Diang, Mianyang, and Tianshui. There are also some technology-intensive modern technology enterprises and scientific research institutions, and moved to Wuhan, Zhengzhou, Chengdu, Chongqing, Xi'an, Lanzhou, Changsha and other provincial capitals where scientific research and education are concentrated and information exchanges are frequent. And some enterprises that have not been relocated are gradually going to be abandoned and closed. Some survived with the help of the local government, but the production category has undergone tremendous changes, such as the famous 816 project in Chongqing. After the adjustment and transformation centered on military to civilian and the stage of restarting businesses to make full use of their benefits, most third-tier enterprises have realized the phoenix nirvana that adapts to the market economy. Many of them have become important civilian enterprises. For example, the Xi'an Second Automobile Factory has become the Dongfeng Motor Group that produces the Shenlong sedan series, and the Chongqing Weapons Industry Base has become the Jialing Motorcycle Group that accounts for the world's largest output, facing the international market. For example, the Zhikane Missile Base has been transformed into a satellite city, and the Long March series rockets have been used to launch satellites for many countries in the world. Today, the Jiuquan Aerospace Base has realized the dream of inviting Chinese people to travel into space. In 2000, the electrification of the entire Chengdu-Kunming Railway was completed, and the transport capacity was greatly improved. Today, the idea of expanding the Chengdu-Kunming Railway into a double track has also been included in the National Medium and Long-Term Railway Network Plan. Today, when the country's economic strength and railway construction level have been greatly improved, this is no longer an unattainable dream. The ongoing Western development and the rise of central China have taken over the third-tier construction in a sense and become the central government's new economic policy for the third-tier regions. At present, most young people in China are not very familiar with the third line and third line construction. The third line construction and as a special specimen of a special era have gradually entered history. But the demographic changes and other social impacts it brings are not over. The third line construction has formed China's reliable Western rear technology and industrial base, initially changed the unbalanced economic development between the east and the west of China, and promoted the social progress of China's inland and border areas. It can be called an unprecedented Western construction strategy in Chinese history. Third-tier enterprises, as industrial specimens of a special era, have become history. However, as an industry that contains the cradle of spirit, it is looking forward to a new life. Distribution of bases for third-line construction. 011 Base, Anshan, Izhu. Fighter and Trainer Production Base. 012 Base, Hanzhong, Shaanxi. It is expected to be built into a fighter aircraft production base. In 1975, the central government decided that the Yun-8 aircraft developed by Xi'an Aircraft Design Institute would continue to be developed from the 012 base, and the base would become a transport aircraft manufacturing base. In 1979, Tonghui Machinery Factory, Jinsong Machinery Factory and 012 Aircraft Design Institute established Shaanxi Aircraft Manufacturing Company independently, and 012 base became the production base of aviation parts. In 1980, the Yunba aircraft was put into mass production. 013 Base, Hunan Airlines Zhangjia Changsha. Administers several aviation parts factories, mainly Xiangling Machinery Factory of 3028 Factory, Zhangjia Aviation Industry Vocational and Technical College, and the 3rd Aviation Design Institute. 014 Base, China Air-to-Air Missile Research Institute Luoyang, Henan. Factory 158 Nanfan Company moved from Hanzhong to manufacture air-to-air missiles. 061 Base, Jiangnan Aerospace, Zunyi, Izhu. The air defense missile production base was built separately from the 2nd Aviation Academy. 062 Base, 7th Aerospace Academy, Sichuan Huanyuan Chengdu. Rocket/ballistic missile production base. The 1st Academy of Aviation was built separately. 063 Base, 4th Academy of Aerospace Science and Technology Xi'an, Shaanxi. 064 base, merged into 062 base Dazhu, Sichuan. 066 base, Sanjiang Aerospace Hubei Yuan and Zhaogan. Aviation Missile Production Base, Red Bird. The Third Academy of Aviation was built separately. 067 base, 6th Academy of Aerospace Engineering Fengxian County, Shaanxi Province, Xi'an. Liquid Rocket Engine Production Base. The First Academy of Aviation was built separately. 068 base, Hunan Aerospace Changsha, 4 counties and 1 city in Shaoyang, Hunan. The Second Academy of Aviation was built separately. It was built in 1970, stopped in 1978, and moved to Changsha in 1994. 081 base, Chuanbei Electronics Guangyuan, Sichuan. The original 0821 headquarters was built in 1965 as the production base of fire control radar. Base 082, Electronic Industry Base in the eastern suburbs of Chengdu, Sichuan. 083 base, Zhenhua Electronics Duyuan, Izhu. 541 General Factory, Tank Manufacturing Base. The organization is in Wangzedong Town, Shaanxi, and the factories are located in Zhangxian, Yuzhen and Yuanhu, Shaanxi. Major achievements in the construction of the third line. China's second automobile group, Xi'an City, Hubei Province, China's second largest automobile group. Jiangan Oil Field, Jianzhong City, Hubei Province. Changqing Oil Field, Shaanxi Province, China's third largest oil field. Jiquan Iron and Steel Group, Jiquan, Gansu. Northwest Aluminum Processing Plant, Lanzhou, Gansu. Panzawa Iron and Steel Group, Panzawa, Sichuan, China's fifth largest iron and steel group. Helen Mountain Coal Base, Shizuishan City, Ningxia. Jiquan Space Launch Center, Jiquan, Gansu, China's largest space launch site. Zikane Space Launch Center, Zikane, Sichuan. Jinchuan Non-Ferrous Metals Company, Jinchang, Gansu. Jialing Motorcycle Group, Chongqing City, the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer. Liupanshui Coal Industry Base, Liupanshui, Izhu. Diang Second Heavy Machinery Factory, Diang, Sichuan, super large machinery manufacturer. Luoyang Glass Factory, Luoyang City, Henan Province. Chengdu Aircraft Factory. Chengdu Aircraft Design Institute. Dongfang Electric Machinery Factory. Dongfang Steam Turbine Works. Dongfang Boiler Works. Chengdu Kunming Railway, Chengdu Kunming, has a total length of 1,091 kilometers. Jiaozhai Railway, Jiaozhuo has a total length of 772 kilometers. The Hunan-Guizhou Railway, Zhuzhou Guiding, has a total length of 905 kilometers. Zhangjiao Railway, Zhangfeng-Chongqing, has a total length of 895 kilometers. The first phase of Qinghai-Tibet Railway, Xining-Nanshan-Kao, has a total length of 814 kilometers. Liujiaxia Hydropower Station has a total installed capacity of 1.225 million kilowatts and an annual power generation of 5.7 billion kilowatt-hour. Danjiangkou Hydropower Station, Asia's largest artificial freshwater lake. Guizhouba Hydropower Station, Yuchane City, Hubei Province, has a total installed capacity of 2.715 million kilowatts and an annual power generation of 16.1 billion kilowatt-hour. Southwest Institute of Physics, China. China Nuclear Power Research and Design Institute. Shaanxi Hanzhong Aircraft Industry Base, 012 Base. On October 28, 1964, with the approval of the National Defense Industry Office, the Department for the Construction of a new factory in the southern Shaanxi area of the 3rd Ministry of Machinery was established in Hanzhong County, which opened the prelude to the construction of the third line in Hanzhong. On November 4, 1966, the Ministry of 3 Machinery issued a contract construction task to Chengdu 420 Factory, today's Chengdu Engine Group Corporation, requiring it to quickly build an aero engine manufacturing plant in Hanzhong, Shaanxi. It is required to build an annual output of 1,000 turbojet engines for fighter jets and corresponding spare parts within 2 years. There are 6 engine factories in total, 470 General Assembly Factory, Dongfengjin Machinery Factory, 480 Large Parts Processing Factory, Bentongji Machinery Factory, 490 Stamping and Welding Factory, Jinwuzhu Machinery Factory, 370 Blade Blank Factory, Fenkanjun Machinery Factory, 380 Blade Processing Factory, Qingyuning Machinery Factory, 390 Small and Medium Parts Factory, Jiangshanjiao Machinery Factory. At the same time, plus the supporting Precision Tool Factory, General Tool Factory, Foundry, Machine Repair Spare Parts Factory, Sub-Warehouse, Oil Depot, etc., there are 10 factories and 2 warehouses in total. On February 21, 1973, the Ministry of Machinery and Machinery notified that in order to shorten the basic construction front, highlight the key points, and accelerate the construction of the aircraft factory in Hanzhong Base, it was decided that the 3 engine factories, 470 Factory, 490 Factory, and 380 Factory, in Hanzhong Base would be in the 4th 5-year plan. During the period, the construction was postponed. In fact, the construction was stopped. Now, the Yun-8 aircraft engine of the 182 Factory is provided by the Zhuzhou 331 Factory. Guizhou state-owned Honglin Machinery Factory, Factory 143, was first established in October 1966 and put into operation in 1970. It is responsible for the production of aircraft hydraulic components and aviation fuel control systems. The old factory is located in the Chuandong Village, Honglin Yi, and Miao Township, Qingzi County, Guizhou Province. It was built in a large natural cave with a length of 180 meters, a height of 20 meters and a width of 30 meters. The factory building is a 3-story frame structure with a building area of 8,670 square meters, with 215 rooms, divided into heat treatment workshop, material warehouse, product design room, assembly test workshop, machine repair, casting, forging, surface treatment, assembly workshop, etc. In 1991, it moved to Guiyang as a whole. China's second automobile manufacturing plant in Xi'an, Hebei, now known as Dongfeng Motor Group. In 1958, Gansu Geological Bureau discovered Yongchang Nickel Mine, the largest nickel mine in China, at the northern foot of Qilian Mountain in Jinchang City. In 1959, the Ministry of Geology decided to establish Yongchang Nickel Mine, which was renamed Jinchuan Non-Ferrous Metals Company in 1961. In 1964, Jinchuan Company produced the first batch of electrolytic nickel, with an output of 22.43 tons that year. In 1966, the first phase of the Jinchuan project with an annual output of 10,000 tons of ore was completed, forming the first nickel-cobalt-platinum group metal production line in my country. The photo shows Jinchuan Company in the early stage of its establishment in the 1960s. In 2011, Jinchuan Group achieved an operating income of 110.6 billion yuan, forming an annual output of 150,000 tons of nickel, the 4th in the world, 600,000 tons of copper, the 3rd in the country, 10,000 tons of cobalt, the 2nd in the world, and 2.8 million tons of chemical products. Production capacity. In September 1958, the first phase of the Qinghai-Tibet Railway, Xining-Galmut section, started construction in Xining and Loquanjiao tunnels. This railway is about 846 kilometers long and is the first plateau railway in my country. Most of the elevations along the line are above 3,000 meters. The high altitude, harsh environment, high cold and hypoxia, the lowest temperature is -35 degrees Celsius, complex technology, and great difficulty in construction are rare in the history of railways in the world. Nearly 100,000 builders including the Xining Railway Bureau, the 10th Division and the 7th Division of the Railway Corps participated in the project. Among them, the Loquanjiao Tunnel is 4,009 meters long and 3,680 meters above sea level. It passes through 11 large fault layers, with a maximum water inflow of more than 10,000 tons per day and night. It took 20 years to complete. The Quanji Gorge tunnels are connected by bridges and tunnels, and 13 short tunnel and 6 bridges will be built. In the Cherhan Salt Lake section, 57,000 compacted sand piles were drilled, and 50,000 cubic meters of yellow sand were poured into it to build a 135-kilometer salt lake subgrade. The Fengguo test section is as high as 4,750 meters above sea level. In addition, 4 branch lines have been built with a total length of 139 kilometers. Until May 1984, the first phase of the Qinghai-Tibet Railway was officially open to traffic. A total of 309 martyrs of the Railway Corps died, including 201 from the 10th Division and 108 from the 7th Division. The construction experience and experimental data accumulated in the first phase of the project laid the foundation for the second phase of the project. On July 1, 2006, the Qinghai-Tibet Railway with a total length of 1,956 kilometers was opened to traffic. It took the Chinese 48 years to finally build this road to heaven on the roof of the world. Established in October 1958, the state-owned Changhong Machinery Factory, 305 Factory, moved to the suburbs of Mianyang from Diang, is one of the professional manufacturers of aviation airborne fire control radar in China and one of the 156 key projects during the first 5-year plan. In 1973, Changhong successfully trial-produced the first 301 Type 16-inch black and white TV set and 401 Type 18-inch color TV set. The young people who build factories in the video are the first generation of entrepreneurs in the electronics industry in China. In 2011, Sichuan Changhong Group achieved a sales revenue of 72.3 billion yuan and 58,000 employees. In September 1958, part of Shanghai Huadong Iron and Steel Construction Works was relocated to Liuzhu, Guangxi, and Liuzhu Engineering Machinery Factory was established. On July 1, 1960, Liuyagong successfully trial-produced an 80-horsepower crawler bulldozer, which opened the history of production of construction machinery. On October 1, 1966, my country's first wheel loader, the Z435 loader, rolled off the assembly line at Liuzhu Construction Machinery Factory in Guangxi. The machine has a loading capacity of 3.5 tons, a bucket capacity of 1.7 cubic meters, and is equipped with a 165 horsepower diesel engine. More than 3,000 units were produced until 1982 when production was discontinued. This machine is the originator of Chinese loaders. In 2011, Liuyagong Group achieved an operating income of 22 billion yuan and 16,000 employees. Old photos of Kizhu Duyun railway station in the early 1960s, when the station building was still a bungalow. Established in 1958, Duyun is the third prefecture-level city in Kizhu after Guiyang and Anshan. During the construction of the third line, Kizhu had 3 bases, 011 base, Guiyang, 061 base, Zunyi, and 083 base, Duyun. In 1965, the 4th Ministry of Machinery established the third line construction headquarters of the 083 base in Duyun, which later evolved into the Kizhu Administration Bureau of the Ministry of Electronics. It has 22 enterprises and 4 institutions under its jurisdiction, with about 30,000 employees, belonging to the Radar Bureau and the Machinery Bureau. Instrumentation Bureau and other departments are distributed in Duyun, Kaili, Zunyi and other places. In 1964, Shanghai Diesel Engine Factory transferred 1,473 employees to help build Kizhu Diesel Engine Factory, and supplied all 135 diesel engine drawings, process documents, and production equipment. It was completed and put into operation in 1966. The plant is the first specialized chemical plant in southwest China to produce high-speed diesel engines and their supporting products. From the 1960s to 1977, the Shanghai Mechanical and Electrical Bureau had nearly 100 enterprises, dispatched more than 40,000 employees and nearly 10,000 pieces of equipment to support the construction of large third-tier industries. In 2005, Kizhu Diesel Engine Factory went bankrupt. On February 25, 1964, the Second Ministry of Machinery, the predecessor of the Ministry of Nuclear Industry, decided to establish a nuclear weapons research institute based on the Nuclear Weapons Bureau, Beijing No. 9 Bureau, and the Nuclear Weapons Research Institute, No. Institute, the Jinyintan 221 base in Yin County, Qinghai is called 221 Research and Design Branch. In May 1965, according to the requirements of the third line construction, the Central Special Committee approved the construction of a nuclear weapon research and development base, codenamed 902 Project, and the sites were selected in Mianyang and Guangyuan Mountains in Sichuan. The main base is located in No. 8 Community, Changqing Village, Changqing Town, Zitong County, Mianyang, in the Beijiawan at the foot of the west slope of Changqing Mountain. Construction began in 1965, covering an area of 581,418 square meters with 167 buildings. It was initially completed in 1969. In October 1969, the 9th Academy began to move from Qinghai Jinyintan to Mianyang Zitong Base. This is the second nuclear weapons development base in my country. Wangganchang, Dengjiaxian, Yumin, Chen Nengquan and other 2 bomb masters, 16 academicians, have worked here for more than 10 years. During the 24 years from 1969 to 1993, this unremarkable poor mountain valley was China's most advanced nuclear weapons development institution. In 1993, the 9th Academy moved to Mianyang Science City as a whole, and the place was abandoned for 10 years without any management. Until August 2002, Sichuan Taikai Lux Group acquired the old site as a whole and renovated it into a red tourist scenic spot. The hut in the photo is the dormitory where Deng Jiaxian lived, but now it has become Deng Jiaxian's former residence. If Deng Jia first knew that the former site of the Nuclear Weapons Research Institute, which he had worked hard for all his life, had become a tourist area for collecting money and selling tickets, I don't know how he would feel. In 1964, the Chengdu Aircraft Manufacturing Factory developed the JJ-5 fighter trainer on the basis of the J-5A. Cheng Rongshen made its first flight on May 8, 1966, and delivered the first aircraft on November 30, 1967. A total of 974 were produced by the end of 1983 and 1,061 by 1986. Production was discontinued in 1989, with a total output of 1,091 and 987 equipped. It used to be used by the August 1st aerobatic team. It was retired in 2009 and equipped with a turbojet 5-ding engine. The photo was taken at the 2010 Zhuhai Air Show. Old photos of the construction of the wind tunnel base in Mianyang, Sichuan in 1965. Under extremely difficult living conditions, scientific researchers start their own businesses here. After more than 50 years of unremitting efforts, the largest aviation wind tunnel test base in Asia has been built here, with more than 50 wind tunnel of various types, comparable to the United States and Russia. Around 1965, in Duyun, Guizhou, the Duyun Bridge Factory of the Ministry of Railways, now China Railway No. 15 Bureau Guizhou Road and Bridge Engineering Company, built in May 1958, is one of the earliest professional factories for railway concrete prefabricated products in China. The Duyun Sub-Bureau was previously under the jurisdiction of the Liaozhou Railway Bureau. Before the opening of the Hunan-Guizhou Railway in 1975, trains from Kunming, Yunnan, and Guiyang, Guizhou to Beijing had to enter Beijing via the Guizhou and Hunan-Guizhou railways. In January 1965, according to the needs of the third line construction, the Party Central Committee and the State Council decided to relocate some key university departments in the coastal provinces to the construction branch campuses in the central and western regions. Mianyang, Sichuan, the predecessor of Southwest University of Science and Technology, the Department of Mathematical Mechanics and Technical Physics, and the Department of Radio, Peking University, moved to Hanzhong, Shaanxi, the predecessor of Shaanxi Institute of Technology. The 5 departments of Nanjing University moved to Daowen County, Chang, Hunan to open a branch, South China Optoelectronics Group, Shanghai East China Institute of Chemical Technology, now East China University of Science and Technology, built a branch in Zhejiang, Sichuan, the predecessor of Sichuan Institute of Technology. Tangshan Railway Institute moved to Imei County, Sichuan, the predecessor of Southwest Jiaotong University. Dalian Medical College moved south to Zunyi, Guizhou, Zunyi Medical College. Beijing Institute of Mining and Technology moved to Hechuan, Sichuan, the predecessor of China University of Mining and Technology. The photo is in 1972, the gate of the Sichuan Zhejiang branch of Shanghai East China Institute of Chemical Technology. The third line construction has played a very important role in balancing the distribution of educational resources between eastern and western China. On April 25, 1965, a group of builders from Chongqing went to the valley of Xintian Township, Nangxi County, Yubin, Sichuan Province to prepare for the establishment of the state-owned No. 216 factory, state-owned Changqing Machinery Factory, in accordance with the requirements of the central third line construction. The factory was relocated from a 54 Type 12.7 mm anti-aircraft machine gun production line of Chongqing Chang'an Machinery Factory, Chongqing state-owned No. 456 factory. Civilians, producing firearms for foreign trade. In December 2006, the whole factory moved to Chengdu. The factory plays an important role in my country's light weapons industry. The photo shows the living area of the original site of the 216 factory. Who would have thought that in this remote and poor mountain valley, there is actually the most important firearms company in China? A large number of builders dedicated their most precious years to the needs of the motherland. Songhualing, Jiangsu City, Sichuan Province, AVIC Gas Turbine Research Institute, codenamed 624, the Engine High Altitude Simulation Test Base, was established in April 1965. There is the only continuous gas source high altitude simulation test platform in Asia, which took 30 years to complete. There are only a handful of countries in the world with such cutting-edge facilities. The facility is mainly used to simulate the low temperature and high temperature extreme airflow environment that occurs when the engine is running on the ground. Among them, the heater can heat the air with a flow rate of nearly 70 kg/s from normal temperature to 500 degrees Celsius. The natural gas consumed by the heater for one day is equivalent to the daily consumption of a small and medium-sized city, 440,000 households. The cooling device can reduce the air of nearly 50 kg/s from normal temperature to minus 70 degrees Celsius, and its cooling capacity is enough for a city with a population of 1 million to enjoy air conditioning in summer. The maximum pumping volume flow rate of the pump reaches 27,000 cubic meters per minute. Such a powerful pumping capacity can completely evacuate the air in the Capitol Gymnasium within 3 minutes, so that the inside will form a vacuum and be crushed by the outside atmospheric pressure. Its total installed capacity is 170,000 kilowatts, and the power consumption of the high-altitude platform test for one day is equivalent to the daily life consumption of a medium-sized city with a population of 2.5 million. The daily water consumption is equivalent to the daily water consumption of a large city with a population of 4.5 million. The base has completed WP7, WP13AII, WP13B, AL25, RD33, FWP14, WS10, tasks such as research tests, troubleshooting tests, and stereotype tests for more than 10 models including 10 core machines. In 1965, according to the requirements of the third line construction, the vertical drilling workshop of Shenyang Zhongjiayi Machine Tool Factory, Shenyang No. 2 Machine Tool Factory, was relocated to Zhongwei County, Ningxia as a whole, and Ningxia Dehi Machine Tool Factory was established. In 1991, Ningxia Dehi Machine Tool Factory moved to Yinchuan. In 2003, it was restructured as a state-owned enterprise and split into 3 companies. On July 16, 1965, Sanpinchi, Longxi County, Gansu Province, Northwest Aluminum Processing Plant, state-owned 113 factory, construction oath meeting. The factory is the largest aluminum processing base in northwest China, and most of the personnel and equipment were moved in from Harbin 101 factory, Northeast Light Alloy Factory. Now it is a branch of Chinalco Northwest Aluminum Processing Plant. Chinalco's 5 major aluminum processing bases, Southwest Aluminum, Northwest Aluminum, Northeast Light Alloy, Lanzhou Aluminum, and Shandong Aluminum, are all metallurgical enterprises established during the Mao Zedong period. In 2011, Chinalco's sales revenue was more than 230 billion yuan, with nearly 200,000 employees. At 10:47 a.m. on September 20, 1965, an F-104C, No. 56-883, fighter jet of the 479th Wing of the U.S. Air Force invaded the west coast of Hainan Island, China, and continued to fly in the direction of Suwen, Guangdong, in an attempt to cross the Kiansu Strait. At 10:58, Gao Xiang and Huang Fengsheng of the 10th Regiment of the 4th Division of the Naval Air Force were ordered to drive to J-6S and turn on the afterburner for high-speed interception. At 11:33, Gao Xiang took the lead in firing from a distance of 291 meters from the enemy plane, and fired all the way to 29 meters. The artillery fire from 3 cannons blasted the F-104C into the air and exploded. Gao Xiang became the first person in the world to destroy the F-104C. U.S. pilot Philip Smith, parachuted and landed in the Sea of Baohugang, Wengtian Town, Wenchang County, Hainan Island, and was captured alive by militiamen when he landed. Until March 1973, after the U.S. withdrew its troops from Vietnam, the Chinese government released Smith, a U.S. prisoner of war. On October 1, 1965, China's first heavy-duty automobile factory, Sichuan Automobile Manufacturing Factory, was established in Dezhou County, Sichuan Province, and the GCH heavy-duty military off-road vehicle technology of the French Bellier Company was introduced. On June 15, 1966, 2 Hongjian CQ-260 heavy-duty off-road vehicles were trial-produced. Equipped with the 6,140 water-cooled diesel engine imitated by the Chongqing Automobile Engine Factory based on the French Bellier, the maximum displacement is 14 liters, and the maximum power is 290 horsepower. From 1965 to 1976, the factory successively trial-produced 6 models, among which Hongjian CQ-260 and Hongjian CQ-261 were mass-produced and became military equipment. In 2000, it was reorganized as Chongqing Heavy Duty Truck Group. In 2003, Chongqing Hongjian Automobile Co., Limited was established, with 2 major brands, Hongjian and Steyr. A group photo of female workers at Chongqing Lingchuan Machinery Factory. State-owned Lingchuan Machinery Factory, 167 Factory, was one of the third-line construction projects in 1965. Some military products of Nanjing Chengguang Machinery Factory, 307 Factory, were moved to Qingping Town, Hechuan County, at the foot of Huaying Mountain, Sichuan Province, and officially named State-owned Mausoleum Chuan Machinery Factory. It achieved the design, construction, relocation, completion, and production goals of the factory in the same year, and was commended by the State Council, which started the first shot of the construction of Chongqing Weapons Industrial Base. In 2000, the Lingchuan factory was moved to Chengdu, leaving 240,000 square meters of housing construction. Haikong Cave, Konglan Town, Kejiang District, Chongqing City is a natural karst cave with a height of 18 to 35 meters, a width of 18 meters and a depth of 210 meters. In 1938, Jiangxi Nanchang Aircraft Factory moved to this hole due to the anti-Japanese war, and changed its name to the Second Aircraft Manufacturing Factory, Haikong Factory, with more than 1,200 employees. It moved back to Nanchang in 1947, and was forced to move to Taiwan by the Kuomintang in 1948. In 1965, Shaanxi Jinlin Machinery Factory moved into this cave due to the third-line construction, mainly producing cannons. In 2003, the Jinlin factory moved to Pengzhou, Sichuan. This cave has become a breeding ground for villagers to raise mushrooms and salamanders. The state-owned Qinjian Machinery Factory, Factory 5027, which was established in 1966, is located in Shiyi Brigade, Wenping Township, Nanchuan County, Chongqing. It was officially put into production in July 1970. The total investment for completion is 41.5375 million yuan, with a total construction area of 98,100 square meters and an area of 240,000 square meters. In the construction of the third front, 14 arsenals were newly built in Chongqing Conventional Weapons Industrial Base, and Nanchuan County had 5, state-run Tianxin Instrument Factory, Ningjiang Machinery Factory, Qinjian Machinery Factory, Hongquan Instrument Factory, and Hongshan Foundry. In 1997, the 3 factories of Hongquan, Hongshan, and Qinjian were relocated to Yudong Town, Banan District, Chongqing. The 10 arsenals located in southern Sichuan were all relocated here. In 1966, Shaanxi Hanshong Nanpan Machinery Factory, 202 Factory, moved from Zhuzhou City, Hunan Province to Zionanhai Town, Nanshong County, Hanshong City, Shaanxi Province. It belonged to the 012 base and the air-to-air missile assembly factory. It was moved to Luoyang, Henan Province in the early 1990s. Before 1995, it was a large factory with tens of thousands of people. Now that the factory has moved away and the buildings are empty, the factory area covering an area of 1,299 mu is in depression. More than 90 buildings in the main factory area on the mountain are still vacant for use. In 1966, in Diang, Sichuan, the 12,000-ton free-forging hydraulic press imported from the Czech Republic by China's second heavy machinery factory entered the commissioning stage. This was the third 10,000-ton hydraulic press built in China at that time. The factory was founded on October 13, 1958. It was formerly known as Southwest Heavy Machinery Factory. Tens of thousands of people attended the opening ceremony. In 1959, it was listed as a national key project. 9 workshops including number 5, cast iron, and forging presses were completed and put into operation in 1971, focusing on large-scale steel rolling, forging press equipment, power station equipment casting and forgings, large artillery, and aviation forgings. In 1993, it changed its name to China's Second Heavy Machinery Group, and listed it in the catalog of key enterprises directly under the central government and related to the lifeline of the country. In 2011, Zhang Group achieved an operating income of 7.22 billion yuan and 13,000 employees. On August 16, 1966, the number 1 tractor factory in Luoyang, Henan, successfully trial-produced the Dongfang Hong LT665 heavy-duty off-road truck for military and civilian use based on the French GBC off-road truck chassis. In October 1967, the car was put into small batch production, and it was officially put into mass production in 1970, and it was exported in small batches. Equipped with Luoyang YTO, it successfully copied the AD-120 FV8 air-cooled diesel engine based on the Tatra engine of Czechoslovakia, with a maximum displacement of 13 liters and a maximum power of 210 horsepower. After the vehicle is equipped with troops, it is mainly used to tow the 152mm cannon howitzer. A large number of heavy-duty automobile enterprises established in my country during the Mao Zedong period, Jinan Huanghe brand, Chongqing Hongjian brand, Shaanxi Automobile Yan'an brand, have accumulated their own technical energy on the basis of the introduction of digested and absorbed technologies. It laid a solid foundation for our country to compete with foreign truck giants for China's market share after the reform and opening up in 1978. Avoided the situation of the entire car industry being wiped out. On August 20, 1965, the ground-to-air missile force of the People's Liberation Army exhibited the wreckage of 4 U.S-made U-2 high-altitude reconnaissance planes shot down by the Kuomintang rogues in Taiwan at the Beijing Military Museum. In February 1961, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency cooperated with Taiwan's Kuomintang rogues to establish the Black Cat Squadron at the Daowen base. The U.S. provided U-2 high-altitude reconnaissance planes, and Taiwan provided pilots. The aerial reconnaissance photos were extremely aggressive. From September 1962 to September 1967, the ground-to-air missile unit of the PLA Air Force used Hunky-2 air defense missiles to shoot down 5 U-2 high-altitude reconnaissance planes of the Taiwan Kuomintang Air Force over Shangzhou, Zhangzhou, Baotou, Jiaxing and other places. Captured Ye Changdi, Zhang Liai and other pilots, Li Nanping, Huang Rongbei, Chen Huaisheng crashed to death. Forced the Taiwan authorities to stop using this type of aircraft to spy on the mainland since March 1968. In March 1967, the Northwest Missile Test Site, Jiquan 20 Base, transferred personnel to Haiping, 2,783 meters above sea level, the main peak of Liuya Mountain, Kelan County, Shaanxi Province, to build the North China Missile Test Site, 25 Base, codenamed 3201 Project. On December 18, 1968, the Taiyuan base successfully launched the first Dongfang 3 telemetry bomb with a range of 2,517.3 kilometers. This is China's first independently designed and built missile test site. In January 1976, the 25th experimental training base was formally established. It later became the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center. The photo was taken by Zhang Xiaoqi on February 22, 2011, when Z1102C was launched. On April 1, 1967, China's second automobile manufacturing plant, referred to as Second Automobile, now Dongfeng Motor Group, held a groundbreaking ceremony in Daluzigou, Xi'an, Yunjiang Mountain, Hubei. The plant has proposed a construction plan since 1952, and has been dismantled 3 times since then. In consideration of military combat readiness, in 1964, Chairman Mao Zedong clearly proposed to consider the second automobile plant in the construction of the third line. On December 21, 1965, the central government approved the establishment of a preparatory group for the second automobile factory, consisting of Rao Ben, Vice Minister of the First Machinery Department, Qi Kang, former director of the Nanjing Automobile Factory, Li Zicheng, Zhang Qingzi, and others to prepare for the establishment of the second automobile factory. It is called State-Owned Dongfeng Machinery Factory. It is designed to produce 100,000 trucks per year, the third largest in the world at that time, including 25,000 2.5-ton military off-road trucks, 20,000 3.5-ton military off-road trucks, and 55,000 5-ton civilian trucks. The final site was selected in the mountainous area of Xi'an. There is a 900,000 kilowatt Danjiangkou hydropower station 80 kilometers northeast of Xi'an, and Xi'anfen in the south. In February 1969, Xi'anjia Railway, Xi'anfen Chongqing, started construction on the whole line and set up a station in Xi'an. In 1971, when the second Automobile Works Group entered the peak period of civil construction, As many as 60,000 construction teams were dispatched from across the country. In 21 ravines covering an area of 190 square kilometers, a total of 27 professional factories have been built for engines, frames, axles, transmission shafts, chassis, carriages, casting, wheels, and instruments. There are also houses, schools, hospitals, shopping malls, parks, roads, and even crematoria for hundreds of thousands of people. This poor mountain ditch developed into the world's largest truck city, Xi'an City. On January 3, 1975, Beijing Second Automobile Co., Limited held a small batch production capacity celebration meeting. 55 brand new EQ2 42.5-ton military off-road trucks that had just rolled off the production line stopped like a long dragon on the Laobai highway from Zhangguan to the park. A concrete road 5 or 6 meters wide was crowded with people on the inner, third, and outer floors. In 1978, the first civilian 5-ton trucks were put into production. These vehicles participated in the self-defense counterattack against Vietnam. After the reform and opening up in 1978, a large number of industrial projects were discontinued. In 1980, the Second Automobile Works Group was listed by the State Planning Commission in the Enterprise Catalog of Suspended and Postponed Construction, and the state stopped all infrastructure funds. At that time, the Second Automobile Works had more than 30,000 employees and more than 20,000 sets of equipment. The state invested 1.67 billion yuan, and the income and expenditure were balanced. Huang Zhenxia, director of the No. 2 automobile plant, asked for help from many sources, and proposed a plan to build the factory in stages with self-raised funds, and finally survived the crisis of life and death. On March 22, 1980, the State Council issued a document approving the continued construction of the Second Automobile Works. Relying on the success of Dongfeng's 5-ton civilian-use automobile, by 1985, the production and sales of Second Automobile, as well as the profits and taxes paid to the state, accounted for 60% of the national automobile industry. But in the 1990s, the operation of the Second Automobile Group was in trouble again, and by 1998, it had accumulated a loss of 540 million yuan. On June 17, 1999, Second Automobile was officially restructured into Dongfeng Motor Co., Ltd. In 2000, it turned losses into profits, with production and sales exceeding 220,000 vehicles and a profit of 1.38 billion yuan. Since then, Dongfeng has become a specialized joint venture in China's auto industry. The established joint ventures include Dongfeng Citroën, France, Dongfeng Nissan, Japan, Dongfeng Honda, Japan, Dongfeng Ueda Kia, Korea, and Dongfeng Yulon, Taiwan. In 2011, Dongfeng Motor Group achieved sales revenue of 407.1 billion yuan, produced and sold 2.9 million vehicles, and employed 130,000 people. In May 1967, part of Shenyang No. 1 machine tool factory was relocated to Tianshui City, Gansu Province, and Tianshui Xingguo machine tool factory was established. The photo shows the production workshop of Tianshui Xingguo machine tool factory in the 1970s. In 2011, Xingguo machine tool achieved a sales revenue of 1.78 billion yuan. During the construction of the third line, 18 key enterprises in China's machine tool industry, known as 18 RHUTs at the time, assisted in the construction of 18 machine tool factories in the central and western regions, which later became Little 18 RHUTs. It is through the construction of this nationwide industrial system that the remote and impoverished areas in western China have entered the gate of industrialization. After the reform and opening up, this industrial system was severely destroyed in the tide of marketization. This strange phenomenon is exactly in line with the paradox of industrialization. It is impossible for a country that develops industry solely to make money and profit to achieve industrialization. It was China's industrial system construction at all costs during the Mao Zedong period that finally enabled China to withstand the enormous pressure brought by Western developed industrial countries after the reform and opening up in 1978, and won the opportunity to compete with them in the market. In October 1967, the temporary medical room of 302 Hospital of Gihang Group, which was built in Guizhou 011 base, was located next to Hongshan Reservoir in Anshan, Guizhou. In January 1997, it was rated as the first batch of second-class hospitals in Guizhou province. In 2005, it moved to Anshan Economic and Technological Development Zone, transforming from an enterprise hospital to a social hospital. The third line construction has not only built more than 2,000 modern industrial and mining enterprises in the poor areas of the West, but also injected powerful forces into the medical, educational, and social development of the Western areas, effectively balancing the development gap between Eastern and Western China. In the 1960s, female militiamen fought on the construction site of the Chengdu-Kunming Railway. In 1967, China's #1 heavy machinery factory built the largest 30,000-ton die forging hydraulic press in Asia, and equipped it with Chongqing Southwest Aluminum Processing Plant, 112 factory of the Ministry of Metallurgy. This was the most advanced die forging equipment in the world at that time, and there are only a handful of countries that can develop such giant machines. Known as one of the 4 national treasures of my country's industry. In 2011, Southwest Aluminum achieved an industrial added value of 13.7 billion yuan. In 1968, part of the Beijing switch factory was moved to Tianshui City, Gansu Province to build the Tianshui Great Wall Switch Factory. To fill the gap in the production of medium voltage switchgear for power transmission and transformation in the central and western regions of China. Now it is the Great Wall Electric Group, with an annual output of 10,000 sets of medium voltage switchgear and circuit breakers. The photo shows the gate of the Tianshui Great Wall Switch Factory in the mid-1970s. In 2011, Great Wall Electric Group achieved an operating income of 1.84 billion yuan. Supplement to the first issue of People's Pictorial in 1969. On December 27, 1968, China's second hydrogen bomb test was successfully carried out at the Lopner nuclear test site in Xinjiang. It was the first time to use plutonium-containing cores, and the number 94 bomber of Wujia, Li Wenhui unit, airdrop, with an explosive equivalent of 3 million tons. In May 1970, the Shenyang Aircraft Design Institute, 601 Institute, transferred more than 500 people and supplies to the 13th Aviation School of the Chengdu Air Force in Sichuan, and established the 2nd Fighter Aircraft Institute, designated as the 611th Institute of the People's Liberation Army, which is now the Chengdu Aircraft Design Institute, assisting Factory 132, Chengdu Aircraft Manufacturing Factory, specializes in the development of J-9 aircraft. In 1970, in order to meet the 226 index proposed by the J-9 aircraft, maximum speed of Mach 2.6, ceiling of 26,000 meters, the 611 Institute proposed the J-9 225 belly air intake plan using a canard layout. The aerodynamic tests were carried out in the FL-21 wind tunnel of the Mianyang base for the air intake scheme on both sides of the 226. You must know that there were no jet fighters with a canard layout in the world at that time. It was not until 1971 that the Swedish Saab 37 Thunder fighter, duck layout, was actually in service. Due to the repeated revisions of tactical indicators in the J-9 program and various problems, the progress was slow, and the development program was finally terminated in 1980. The canard layout used in the J-9 program, the J-9-6225 belly air intake scheme, later evolved into the J-10. The 226 double engine and double vertical tail scheme, J-96-2, adopted in the J-9 program can be regarded as the technical starting point for Jinfei to develop the J-24th generation stealth fighter. The final assembly site of Kizhuliang Aero Engine Factory. In May 1970, the first turbojet engine produced by Kizhuliang Company was successfully assembled and tested in Keiwa Cave in Pingba, Anshan. On September 18 of the same year, the first fighter jet independently developed and produced by Kizhu 011 base flew into the blue sky at Anshan Chuangyang Airport. Kizhuliang Aero Engine Company was established in 1965 and consists of Liang Machinery Factory, Xinyi Machinery Factory, Honghu Machinery Factory, Kizhu Aero Engine Research Institute and Liang Aviation Materials Company. 3 factories, 1 institute, and 1 warehouse were all born in the third line construction period, with 13,000 employees and more than 6,000 sets of various equipment, forming a product system of WP7 and WP13 series with a total of 16 types of turbojet engines. At 4:42 on June 29, 1970, the #1 blast furnace of the first phase project of Sichuan Panzawa Iron and Steel Company was completed and tapped. Panzawa Iron and Steel #1 blast furnace has a furnace capacity of 1,000 cubic meters and a blast furnace system of more than 40,000 tons of equipment. It is manufactured by 234 factories in 26 provinces and cities across the country. The furnace shell is made of 32 mm 16 manganese alloy steel plate produced by Anjin Iron and Steel Construction Company, 19 Metallurgical Corporation, installed. In 2011, Hansawa Iron and Steel Group achieved operating income of 52.5 billion yuan, crude steel output of 7.46 million tons, and iron ore concentrate of 11.55 million tons. In the 1970s, the national fitness campaign was carried out across the country, and Sichuan Chongqing General Machine Factory organized workers to carry out mass sports activities. The predecessor of the factory was established in Shanghai in 1925. It was moved to Chongqing in 1937 due to the anti-Japanese War. In 1952, it was changed to Factory 207 of the Southwest Ministry of Industry. In 1953, it was renamed Chongqing General Machinery Factory. Yudai Mountain, about 4.8 kilometers west of Zinken, is one of the key backbone enterprises of blowers and refrigerators in the country. The factory covers an area of 233,000 square meters, with heavy metalworking, blower workshops, design, technology, and other departments and research institutes. On December 26, 1970, Chairman Mao Zedong approved the construction of the Gizhu Dam project on the Yangtze River in Yuchang, Hubei, then known as the 330 Project. On December 30th, the project broke ground at the mouth of Xiling Gorge in Yuchang, and tens of thousands of people attended the groundbreaking ceremony. More than 100,000 construction migrant workers were organized by counties in Hubei. In 1981, Hubei completed the closure of the river, and in 1988, it was completed for power generation. The project is my country's first large-scale hydropower station built on the Yangtze River, with a total installed capacity of 2.777 million kilowatts and an average annual power generation of 15.7 billion kilowatt hours. The dam is 2,595 meters long, 70 meters high and 30 meters wide, with 3 ship locks. The maximum discharge capacity of the 27-hole sluice gate is 83,900 cubic meters per second. After the completion of the Gizhuba Water Conservancy project, it will transmit electricity to the provinces along the river, greatly improving the flood control and navigation conditions of the Yangtze River, and has accumulated valuable design and construction experience for the later construction of large-scale hydropower stations on the Yangtze River. In 1998, when the catastrophic floods hit the Yangtze River, Gizhuba participated in 3 peak shaving and flood regulation. On January 1, 1971, the 1.4m x 1.4m low-speed wind tunnel was put into use at the Mianyang base in Sichuan, with a test range of 10 to 60 meters per second. Photo by Yu Zhang. At 10:59 on May 21, 1971, the Zhejiabao iron mine in Shizishan, Hansawa, Sichuan, was the first 10,000-ton blast in Chinese history. Organized and implemented by the 19th Metallurgical Construction Company, 19th Metallurgical Corporation, of the Ministry of Metallurgical Industry, more than 30,000 people from 36 units including railway soldiers and local militia participated. The layered delayed blasting method was adopted, and 9,173 tons of amine oil explosives and 989 tons of amine oil explosives were consumed. Tons of nitramine explosives. Zhejiabao iron mine is designed to produce 7.5 million tons of iron ore per year, and it needs to strip more than 70 meters thick and 11.4 million cubic meters of rock and soil overburden. The blasting project excavated 24 tunnels, with a depth of 14,562 meters, 586 explosive chambers, and 13,379 cubic meters of earth and stone excavated. When Sichuan was carrying out the construction of the third line, wooden row ferries were used to solve the problem of large-scale industrial transportation. The background of the photo is the abandoned Data River Suspension Bridge in Jinhekao District, Lishan City. The ancients said that the road to Shu was difficult, and it was difficult to go to the blue sky. In that era when the transportation was not perfect, the difficulty of building a large-scale industrial system was unimaginable by today's people. New China took decades to go through the history of 200 years of developed industrialized countries, which is the result of the hard work of generations of Chinese people. On October 1, 1971, the 4MX3M single-return low-speed wind tunnel was put into use at the Mianyang base in Sichuan. The photo shows the wind tunnel deflector. The test range is 10 to 100 meters per second, and the motor power is 2050 kilowatts. Photo by Yu Zhang. On October 13, 1972, the Hunan-Gizhu Railway was successfully connected at Wentang Station in Gizhu. The road runs from Zhuzhou, Hunan to Guiyang, is Hu, with a total length of 905 kilometers and 108 stations. It is an important passage connecting southwest China. The geology along the way is complex and the project is arduous. As early as 1936, it started construction from Zhuzhou Tianjin Station. It was stopped due to the anti-Japanese war, and then it was rebuilt many times. It entered the stage of large-scale construction in 1970 and was put into operation in 1975. On October 19, 1973, the Xianjiao Railway connected at the Zhangzi Station in Shaanxi. The Xianjiao Railway, Xianfen, Hubei Chongqing, Sichuan, is a key project of the third line construction, with a total length of 895.3 kilometers. There are 716 bridges and 405 tunnels along the entire line. The total length of bridges and tunnels accounts for 45% of the total length of the line. Construction began in April 1968, and it was completed in August 1970 to Daxian County, now Dazhu. In 1975, China built a 0.6-meter transonic wind tunnel, FL-23, in Mianyang, Sichuan, with a wind speed of Mach 0.4 to 4.5 in the test section. It was the third wind tunnel of this type built in China at that time. The Aerodynamics Research Office of Shenyang Aircraft Factory built a 0.6-meter transonic wind tunnel in February 1960, with a test wind speed of Mach 0.3 to 4. Nanjing Aeronautical Institute also built a similar wind tunnel, which underwent technical transformation in the 1970s. On December 21, 1975, the J-Liuji all-weather fighter produced by Guizhou 011 base, Guizhou Aircraft Manufacturing Factory, made its first flight. The aircraft was originally manufactured by Shenyang Aircraft Factory and Nanjing Aircraft Factory. Due to quality problems, the Air Force designated Guizhou Aircraft Factory to redevelop it in 1974 to undertake night combat missions. The engine uses two turbojet 6 engines, with a single thrust of 25.497 knots and an afterburner thrust of 31.871 knots. The sixth issue of People's Pictorial in 1976, Liuzhou Automobile Factory. The factory was formerly known as Liuzhou Agricultural Machinery Factory, established in 1954, which produced agricultural water pumps. In 1969, it switched to automobile production. It imitated Nanjing Yejin 130 automobile and named it Feiyu, later changed to Liujiang. In 1973, it was officially listed as Liuzhou Automobile Manufacturing Plant. In 1975, it borrowed the Dongfeng 145-ton truck chassis produced by the 2nd Automobile Works Group, and assembled the 6105Q diesel engine from Shanghai Gongnong Power Machinery Factory. The Liujiang brand 5-ton truck was successfully trial produced. It was discontinued in 1981 and became a truck in 1983. The Dongfeng joint venture plant is now Dongfeng Liuzhou Automobile Co., Limited, and its sales revenue in 2010 exceeded 12 billion yuan. In the sixth issue of People's Pictorial in 1976, Liuzhou Tractor Factory Fengshout 37 horsepower tractor. Founded in 1958, formerly Liuzhou Power Machinery Factory, Liuzhou Tractor Factory was one of the 8 largest tractor factories in the country, with an annual output of 7,000 vehicles. In 1982, Liuzhou Tractor Factory began trial production of miniature vehicles. In 1985, it officially changed its name to Liuzhou Miniature Vehicle Factory and established the Wuling brand. By 1998, the production and sales had reached 100,000 units. It was the largest miniature vehicle company in China. General Motors jointly established GM Wuling. In 2011, SAIC GM Wuling sales revenue was 46 billion yuan, with production and sales of 1.3 million vehicles. People's Pictorial, number 7, 1976, Qinchuan Precision Machine Tool Factory, measuring the accuracy of machine tool gears. In June 1965, in accordance with the requirements of the third line construction, part of the Shanghai Machine Tool Factory moved to Beiji, Shaanxi, with a planned investment of 20 million yuan and 2,000 employees to build a new Qinchuan Machine Tool Factory. There are 3,472 employees. In 2009, the sales revenue of Qinchuan Machine Tool Group was 4.758 billion yuan, including Beiji Machine Tool. The 8MX6M low-speed wind tunnel is currently the largest wind tunnel in Asia, located in the China Aerodynamic Research and Development Center in Mianyang, Sichuan. The wind tunnel was first built in 1971, completed in 1978, and passed the national appraisal in 1983. The wind tunnel is a large-scale low-speed wind tunnel with double test sections of DC closed-mouth tandem, with a total length of 237 meters. The power system is 3 huge fans arranged in a zigzag shape, with a single diameter of 7 meters and a total power of 7,800 kilowatts. The maximum test wind speed is 100 milliseconds. The size of the wind tunnel can be seen from the height of the researchers. The cave workshop of Honghu Factory. Guizhou state-owned Honghu Machinery Factory, located in Ziyayun Town, Pingba County, Anshan City, Guizhou Province, was founded in 1965 and covers an area of 630,000 square meters. Flame Tube, Work Header, Professional Factory. In June 1981, Liang Company was established, and Honghu Machinery Factory was affiliated to Liang Aero Engine Company. The Turbojet 13 series engines developed and produced by Sangxian Gihang. At Fort 27 on May 22, 1970, Guizhou, a third-line construction company, produced the first Turbojet 7 engine and successfully assembled it at the 460 factory in Pingba County, Anshan. At 5:15 on the 23rd, it successfully passed the factory test run. Compressor rotors, stators, turbine rotors, guides, combustion chambers and rear casings, afterburner diffusers, spray barrels with adjustable nozzles and various blades, as well as main fuel nozzles and afterburner manifolds, are all. It is a trial product of each engine factory in the 011 base. The Turbojet 13 began to be developed in 1978, and began to be installed on the J-82 for test flight in 1985. In 1993, it was put into mass production as supporting power for J-7E aircraft. In September 1966, Liu Peiren took his wife and belt from Shenyang Lining Aircraft Engine Factory to Guizhou to support the third-line construction and became an early builder of Guizhou's aviation industry. On May 18, 1971, he was the head of the infrastructure carpentry platoon of the Enji foundry of the former Guizhou Aviation Industry Administration Bureau, and he fell from a height of 6 meters at the construction site, resulting in traumatic paraplegia. Although he has been bedridden for more than 40 years, he still uses a telescope to watch the changes in the factory outside the window every day. Yu Xinmin, the chief designer of the JJ-7 advanced trainer aircraft developed by Guizhou Aviation Industry Group, still cares about the development of new aircraft after retirement. Since 1981, Guizhou Aviation Group has started to develop the J-72 fighter jet as a prototype. In 1988, it passed the technical export appraisal and was exported to countries such as Pakistan and Panama. In 2004, Gihang developed the Shenyang trainer aircraft based on the JJ-7. This huge open space was the number 3 cotton mill in Chongqing, which once had 10,000 employees. Every few days, an old worker in her 80s named Wang Sukbang came here and cried loudly in front of everything. In the photo, several old workers who are over 70 years old all entered the factory in 50 years and devoted their lives to the cotton spinning factory. Chongqing National Cotton No. 3 factory went bankrupt and reorganized in 2005, and entered into a joint venture with Shandong Ruyi Group. Qin Wenxi. The third-line construction took 20 years to build more than 2,000 modern industrial and mining enterprises and scientific research institutes in the central and western regions of China. The densely packed factories on this map are only part of the third-line construction in Guizhou. The third-line construction has built 45 major scientific research and production bases for industrial products in the central and western regions, and formed a relatively complete strategy covering coal, electric power, metallurgy, chemical industry, machinery, nuclear energy, aviation, aerospace, military industry, electronics, and shipbuilding. Rear base. There are more than 200,000 engineers and technicians in the military industry alone. A large number of emerging industrial cities, such as Panzawa, Liupanshui, Xi'an, and Diang, have sprung up in the barren valleys. It is close to the gap with the developed industrial cities in the east. Millions of builders have shed their youth, sweat, and even their precious lives for this. This kind of unprecedented industrialization is unimaginable in today's China, where the smell of copper is everywhere and only money is recognized. Who will remember their efforts and beliefs? Who will remember the China that forged ahead? Who is laughing at them? Who is trying to demonize that era?